Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! My mom and I decided to buy a house together. We'd always been close, and the idea of having our own place seemed perfect. Little did I know things were about to get complicated. Honey, I've got some great news. We found the perfect house for us, my mom said one day. I was thrilled. That's awesome, Mom. When can we see it? How about this weekend? Oh, and by the way, I was thinking maybe we could invite Jason and his kids to live with us. Jason was my mom's boyfriend of 6 months. I didn't know him or his kids that well, but I figured it wouldn't hurt to have more people to split the bills. Sure, Mom, if that's what you want. Looking back, I should have seen the red flags, but I was too excited about the prospect of owning a home to think clearly. The day we went to look at the house, Jason and his 2 teenagers came along. As we walked through the rooms, I noticed how Jason kept pointing out things his kids would like. Oh, this room will be perfect for Mitch's drum set, he says. And then Mom answers with, and look at this backyard. Lori could practice her gymnastics here. I tried to ignore the sinking feeling in my stomach. This was supposed to be our home, right? But when it came time to apply for the mortgage, my mom pulled me aside. Sweetie, I need a favor. Could you sign on as a co-owner? It'll boost our credit and help us get approved. I hesitated. I don't know, Mom, that's a big responsibility. Please, it's just a formality. This is our home, remember? Against my better judgment, I agreed. We got approved, and soon enough we were moving in. At first, everything seemed fine. We were all excited about the new house, and there was a sense of camaraderie as we unpacked and settled in. But as weeks turned into months, things started to change. Jason and his kids took over more and more of the house. Mitch's drum set wasn't just in his room, it was in the living room. Lori's gymnastics equipment spread from the backyard to the garage, and Jason, he acted like he owned the place. One day I came home to find my stuff had been moved out of the spare room I was using as an office. Mom, what happened to my things? Oh, we needed that room for Lori's study area. I put your stuff in the basement. You don't mind, do you? I was speechless. This was supposed to be my home too, wasn't it? Things only got worse from there. Jason started making decisions about the house without consulting me. He repainted rooms, rearranged furniture, and even talked about renovating the kitchen. We're thinking of knocking down this wall to open up the space. It'll be great for entertaining. Don't I get a say in this? I'm on a deed too. Come on, don't be selfish. This is for the family. Family? When did they become the family and I become the outsider? The final straw came when I overheard a conversation between my mom and Jason late one night. We should think about refinancing the house. We could use the extra money for the kids' college funds. Mom asks him, but what about my daughter? She's on a deed too. Oh, that? Well, we can figure something out. Maybe she can sign off her part. After all, this is our home now. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I confronted my mom the next day. Mom, I heard you and Jason talking last night. Is this true? Are you planning on pushing me out? Honey, it's not like that. We're just trying to do what's best for everyone. Everyone except me, you mean? This was supposed to be our home, Mom. You and me. Things changed, sweetie. Jason and the kids are part of our lives now. But I'm on a deed. I have rights too. Don't be difficult. Can't you see how happy we all are? But I wasn't happy. I felt betrayed, used, and pushed aside. I realized I needed to find a way out of the situation before it got worse. I started researching my options. It turned out that being on a deed gave me more power than I realized. I could potentially force a sale of the house through something called a partition action. When I brought this up to my mom, she was shocked. It can't be serious. This is our home. No, Mom. It stopped being our home the moment you chose Jason and his kids over me. That's not fair. We're a family now. A family that doesn't include me. I want out, Mom. I'm going to talk to a lawyer. The next few weeks were tense. I consulted with a civil litigation attorney who confirmed that I had the right to petition the court for a partition by sale. It wasn't an easy decision, but I felt I had no choice. When I told my mom and Jason about my decision to go ahead with the legal action, all hell broke loose. You ungrateful brat. After all we've done for you? Jason yelled. How could you do this to us? To your family? Mom said. You stopped being my family when you pushed me aside for your new one. The legal process was long and stressful. My mom tried everything to convince me to change my mind. She promised things would be different, that we'd make more space for me, but I knew it was too late. The trust was broken. Jason says, You're ruining everything. Where are we supposed to go if the house is sold? That's not my problem anymore. You made your choices, and now I'm making mine. As a court date approached, the atmosphere in the house became unbearable. Jason and his kids treated me like a pariah. My mom alternated between pleading with me and giving me the silent treatment. Finally, the day of the court hearing arrived. I was nervous. The judge listened to both sides and ultimately ruled in my favor. The house will be sold, the mortgage paid off, and the remaining proceeds split according to our ownership shares. I can't believe you're going through with this. You're tearing this family apart. Mom says, No, Mom. You did that when you chose them over me. The day we moved out was bittersweet. As I watched my mom and Jason pack up their things, I felt sad but also relieved. This wasn't how I'd imagined things would turn out when we first bought the house, but I knew I was making the right decision for myself. As I loaded the last of my boxes into my car, my mom approached me. I hope someday you'll understand why we did what we did. And I hope someday you'll understand why I had to do this. With that, I drove away, leaving behind the house. It was supposed to be our home, but never really was. It was a hard lesson. I may not have a house anymore, but I had my self-respect back, and that was worth more than any property. After spending a year in Japan for my dad's work, we were finally back home. Mom, Dad, my little brother, and I just had landed at the airport, and we were all exhausted but excited to sleep in our own beds again. Dad's company had sent him to oversee a new project in Tokyo. At first, I was upset about leaving my friends and school behind, but living in Japan turned out to be an amazing experience. I learned so much about a new culture, picked up some Japanese, and even made some great friends. But as the year came to an end, we were all ready to come back to our normal lives. As we pulled up to our house, something felt off. There were unfamiliar cars in the driveway, and the front yard looked different than how we left it. They parked on a street and we all got out confused. What's going on here? Dad asked. We didn't have time to discuss it further because the front door opened, and a family we'd never seen before came out onto the porch. They looked just as confused as we were. Dad approached them cautiously. Excuse me, but what are you doing in our house? The man who seemed to be the father of the other family stepped forward. Your house? We've been renting this place for the past 6 months. Who are you? We're the owners of this house. We've been away for work, but we're back now. There must be some mistake. The atmosphere grew tense as both families stared at each other in disbelief. Suddenly, the strange man reached behind his back and reached out for his gun. I don't know who you are, but you better leave now. We're not going anywhere. Mom gasped and pulled my brother and me behind her, and Dad raised his hand slowly. Whoa, let's calm down. There is no need for weapons. We can sort this out. Just then, our neighbor from across the street, who was also the president of our homeowners association, came out of her house. I'd always thought she was a bit nosy, but I never expected what happened next. What's all this commotion about? She asks. Karen, thank God. Can you please explain to these people that this is our house? We've been away for a year, remember? Karen looked nervous and avoided eye contact with us. I don't know what you're talking about. As far as I know, this family has been living here for months. What? But you knew we were coming back. We asked you to keep an eye on the place while we were gone. The man with the gun was getting agitated. Look, I don't care who you are. We paid good money to rent this place, and we're not leaving. Paid who? We never put this house up for rent. Karen started to back away, but Mom caught on quickly. Karen, did you rent out our house without our permission? I don't have to answer to you. Dad had managed to discreetly call the police while this was going on. Karen had been renting our house to this family who were in the country illegally. The family living in our house had no idea that Karen did not actually own the place. When the strange man realized he'd been scammed, his face turned red with anger. He whirled around to face Karen, who was still standing nearby. You lied to us. This isn't your house to rent. Karen's eyes widened, and she took a step back. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't play dumb with me. We paid you thousands of dollars to rent this place. I never took any money from you. You must be confused. The man's anger seemed to boil over. He started yelling even louder. Confused? You're calling me confused? You stole our money and put my family at risk. And now we're getting thrown out on the street. Now, let's not get carried away. I'm sure this is all just a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? I'll show you a misunderstanding. Before anyone could react, the man raised his gun and fired. The sound was deafening, and for a moment, everything seemed to freeze. Then Karen crumbled to the ground, clutching her shoulder. Mom screamed and pulled my brother and me close to her. Dad rushed to Karen's side, pressing his hand against her wound to try and stop the bleeding. The police officers who were just approaching the scene immediately tackled the man, disarming him and pinning him to the ground. One of them called for an ambulance while the others secured the scene. I stood there in shock, unable to process what had just happened. 1 minute we were trying to get back into our house, and the next our neighbor was shot right in front of us. The next few hours were a blur. The EMTs arrived and took Karen to the hospital. The police arrested the man who shot her, along with the rest of his family. They took statements from all of us, asking us to recount what happened over and over again. As the chaos died down, we were finally allowed back into our house. It felt surreal walking through the front door, seeing our home arranged differently, filled with strangers' belongings. Dad says, we will sort this all out tomorrow. For now, let's just try to get some rest. Mom says, how are we supposed to rest after all of this? I know it's been a crazy day, but we're safe now. That's what matters. We all nodded, too exhausted to argue. As I lay in my bed that night, I couldn't help but think about how differently our homecoming had turned out. We'd left for Japan expecting adventure, but I never imagined we'd come home to something like this. The next few days were filled with police interviews, lawyer consultations, and us trying to reclaim our home. We found out that Karen was going to survive her injury, but she was facing serious charges for fraud and renting out a property she didn't own. The family that had been living in our house was deported, and the man who shot Karen was charged with assault with a deadly weapon. It was a mess to say the least. As for us, we had to go through the whole house, figuring out what was damaged or missing. It wasn't exactly the homecoming we had expected, but in a weird way, it brought us closer together as a family. Dad's company was really understanding about the whole situation and gave him some extra time off to deal with everything. We had a lot of paperwork to go through, talking to lawyers and the police. But eventually, things started to calm down. The neighborhood was in shock when they found out what Karen had done. A lot of people came by to apologize to us for not realizing what was going on. It was nice to know we had support, even if it came after everything had already happened. As for me, well, I missed Japan, but I was glad to be home. This whole experience taught me that you can't always trust people even if they seem nice on the surface. It also showed me how quickly things can go wrong and how important it is to keep a level head in crazy situations. Now we're trying to get back to our normal routines. I'm catching up with my old friends and getting ready to start school again. It's weird to think about how much has changed in just a year, but I'm glad we're all together and safe in our own home again. I work for an agriculture company, putting in anywhere from 60 to 120 hours a week, while also working on getting a degree. My wife is a homemaker by choice. We've been married for 11 years and for the most part, things have been good. But there is this one issue that's been driving me crazy. Sometimes I get exhausted and just want to catch a quick nap, but my wife, she won't let me. Every time I try to sleep, she wakes me up or does everything she can to keep me from falling asleep. I've tried talking to her about it, but she can't seem to tell me why she does it. One day, after 10 straight days of 16-hour shifts, I got off early and took my wife out for lunch. When we got home, I thought I'd grab a quick nap before diving into my schoolwork. I haven't even been lying down for 5 minutes when it started. Hey, what are you doing? Just trying to catch a quick nap. I'm pretty beat. But it's the middle of the day. Come on, get up. She started shaking me and turning on all the lights in the room. You can't sleep now. There's so much to do. Please, I just need a few minutes. I've been working non-stop for days. But I'm bored. Can we do something together? I sat up feeling frustrated and angry. Look, I really need this nap. Can't you just let me rest for a bit? Fine. If you'd rather sleep than spend time with me, go ahead. She stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind her, but I knew from experience that she'd be back in a few minutes to start the whole thing over again. The next day, I tried talking to her again. Can we talk about why you won't let me sleep? I just don't like it when you sleep during the day. It's weird. But why? I work long hours, sometimes overnight, sometimes I need to catch up on sleep. Well, I get lonely, and there's always something that needs to be done around the house. I understand that, but don't you think I need rest too? You sleep at night, don't you? Not always enough. Look, I'm trying to balance work and school here. Sometimes I'm exhausted. But what about me? What am I supposed to do while you're sleeping? You could read a book, watch TV, call a friend. There are a lot of things you could do. It's not the same. I want to spend time with you. The tension continued to build over the next few weeks. Every time I tried to rest, my wife would find some reason to disturb me. It all came to a head when I came home one day hoping to catch an hour of sleep before tackling my schoolwork. Oh, good, you're home. Let's go for a walk. Maybe later. I really need some sleep right now. Come on, you're always sleeping. Let's do something together. I'm not always sleeping. I work 60 to 120 hours a week. When exactly am I always sleeping? Well, whenever you're home, you're either working on school stuff or trying to sleep. Yeah, because I'm tired. I am working hard to provide for us and to better myself. Why can't you understand that? So what? I'm just supposed to sit around and wait for you to have time for me? The argument escalated, with both of us feeling frustrated and misunderstood. We tried to find a compromise, but it was clear that we were both unhappy with the situation. Things came to a head a few weeks later. I came home to find my wife in a mood about the yard needing mowing. When I said I was too tired to do it right away, she exploded. That's it. I am done. I can't do this anymore. You can't be done. I'm your wife. You can't just be done with me. I'm not done with you. I'm done with this situation. Something has to change. Nothing's gonna change. I'm not going anywhere. The next day I came home to find two vehicles with trailers parked outside our home, loaded with almost everything we owned. My wife and her family were leaving, taking everything down to the curtain rods. The following night my wife returned, but not for reconciliation. She became aggressive, chasing me around the house. When I threatened to call the sheriff, she started hitting herself, threatening to accuse me of abuse. I left the house and called for help. Since then, she's sent thousands of text messages, alternating between wanting to come back and calling me the worst person alive. I filed for divorce. Looking back, I can see the signs were there all along. The constant need for attention, the inability to let me rest, the extreme reactions. I wish I'd recognized it sooner, but I was too caught up in trying to make everything work. Now I'm just trying to move forward. It's not going to be easy, but I know it's necessary. I deserve to be in a relationship where my needs are respected, where I can rest without feeling guilty. It's a hard lesson to learn, but sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes you have to love yourself enough to walk away. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.